So how do you feel about doing this?
I feel good about it. I'm a little afraid that I might start to cry. It's something I've had to deal with being at the hospital. I'm always afraid I'm going to cry. I grew up downtown, mostly in Greenwich Village, and I had this very romantic idea of my life. I was obsessed with reading memoirs of artists and, beatniks' girlfriends, and I was like, I'm gonna just be one of these artists. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but I guess I always just assumed I would be famous. So I started doing my music, and I thought, I was gonna be Stevie Nicks. Like, I was gonna live this romantic life, and I married the perfect guy. I was gonna make my mark as a poet and a fashion icon. It was ridiculous when I think of the ego that was driving this whole thing. Opportunity came up to go on a tour that wasn't even my tour. I was playing a couple shows, and I was asked to play in someone else's band. And so here I had this new album that I thought was gonna be, like Joni Mitchell's Blue. It was gonna be my thing. And instead of getting behind it, I dropped everything and went on a tour for someone else's project. And I completely came undone. By the time we got to Texas, we played a show. I was the keyboard player. Later that night, someone, after a few too many drinks, said to me, you really have to tone it down on stage. I said, what do you mean? He's like, you're just calling too much attention upon yourself. You need to tone it down, you're a side player. So I got home from this trip. My husband and I we decided to start over again. We moved to a new place, and I got pregnant and was really happy about it. I realize now it was because I had nothing left anymore. My album, nothing happened with it. And that was my identity, so I just felt identityless. And I remember going online and looking at all these mommy blogs, and there's all these bohemian mom blogs now of just beautiful moms with long hair and Afghans and these light-filled nurseries. And I was just that's gonna be me. At 10 weeks, I was in Union Square, and I started bleeding. And I knew that I wasn't gonna have this baby. And I'll never forget the trip to the doctor. Stevie Nicks was playing on the radio in the car service.
That's crazy.
It was so crazy. And I just sat there bleeding. The sound of the ultrasound when they confirmed that there was no more baby, in a strange way, it was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. It was a new beginning sound. It was a sound of birth, even though I was holding death. And it was Fashion Week, and I was asked, right? I was asked to perform at a small event, something I had always done. And I was like, I'm gonna do it. It was the ego, right? Just being I'm still here, I'm gonna do this. Meanwhile, I had just been through this huge thing, and I get to the fashion show. There's cards on all the chairs with my name on it, saying that I'm gonna be performing. But there was some PR glitch, and I didn't have a seat. And it was just awful.
Wow.
It was oh yeah, you thought you could come back? There's no seat. Worst place to be probably after you've just had a miscarriage is a fashion show, right? And then there are people I know getting their picture taken and looking fabulous, and it was a lot for me to even get dressed and be there. And that's when I said, you know what, Alexa Wilding? You need a fucking timeout. You need a timeout. Big time. And I said, I want to have children. I want to try again. And I didn't think it was going to happen so fast. And twins. So I'm pregnant with these twins, and very stressful pregnancy. I had wanted to give birth at home in a bathtub because the blog said that was the beautiful thing to do. Listening to Joni Mitchell's Blue, And instead, I'm at Mount Sinai, hooked up every 2 weeks to this machine, and being told that if I'm hungry, I'll never forget the skinny doctor, she goes, try a handful of almonds. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Well, I'm eating hamburgers at 2 a.m. because I have 2 monsters growing inside of me.
How much weight did you gain?
75 pounds. Babies weren't coming out. Failure to proceed. So I had to be induced. I showed up so excited, and I looked at the resident who was gonna start opening my cervix, and I would not open up. I look back at that now, that's some heavy symbolism, that's some heavy stuff. 16 hours later, we're gonna cut you open and get these babies out. They put the sheet up, and I knew they were cutting me open. And I lay there looking at the light, and it dawned on me for a second that I might die. And what flashed through my head? Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't stop thinking about it. There I was, about to have my children. And I'm still thinking about the fact that I felt like I had failed at doing what I wanted to do with my life. I'm like, am I like such an egomaniac that this is what I'm thinking about? And then I caught that voice. I remember, I said, Alexa, we're gonna have your children now. And when I heard the cries, I forgot all about it. So we get through like 10 months with the twins. They're doing great. They're healthy and thriving. And then my son, Lou, started having some issues. He started throwing up, and then he stopped nursing. He got so sick that we took him to the emergency room, and I knew it wasn't good. And I just cried. I cried like nobody has ever cried. Lou was too weak to cry. He had a brain tumor. Lou had surgery. They almost lost him twice in the operating room. And then we got the call, and they said, you know what, it was a really bad tumor, but this kind is almost always benign. And we were like, oh, thank God. And then we spent 3 weeks just like monitoring him. Then we got the call. We're sorry, your son is one of the 0.3% who has this rare cancerous brain tumor. I thought, being a side player in someone's band in Texas was a surrender. I thought not being sure if I wanted to be married anymore was a surrender. I thought losing a baby was a surrender. Being told that my stomach would never go down. I have a condition that a lot of mothers of twins get. It's where your stomach separates from the abdominal wall. So it literally just hangs off you. So you kind of always look a little pregnant. I remember 2 years earlier being devastated when a picture of the kale I had for dinner got more likes than, hey everyone, I released my record today. Seeing your son through his first round of chemotherapy, taking him home, such an accomplishment. He rises to the occasion every time. He shows us how to handle it. A dear friend of mine who's a cancer survivor, I said to him, so what is this like? What's it like living with the fear of cancer's return? And he said, it's learning to live with your front door unlocked. Well, isn't that the goal of life? The door is unlocked. So I'm getting to experience that at 33. I feel really lucky. Life is a really good place. Let's live it. Let's stop worrying about how we frame it. Let's stop worrying about the filter we use to show ourselves. I was in so much pain holding on to that illusion. My pain's different now. I hurt when Lou hurts. I hurt when I have to leave him to go home to West. I hurt when I have to leave West to go to Lou. Some of the happiest moments I've had have been in these last 6 months. There was a day at the hospital, Lou was napping, and my husband had gone to be with West, and There's a little toy piano. I put my headphones in. Long story short, I wrote my new album in the hospital room. When Lou would wake up, I'd play them, and he seemed to be getting joy from them too. It was just like this great thing. And if the songs never left the hospital room, that was fine. You know what? For the first time ever, I felt so lucky to have something with which to express myself. And I didn't care if anyone, I don't care if anyone likes it. I don't care if because I have a diastasis, no one will want me to play at their fashion show. I don't really give a shit. And I know now that I'm safe no matter what.
When do you feel the most beautiful?
When I'm holding Lou, he is just getting that stuff out of his system, and we are moving forward. And magic is happening, and love is happening. And I feel the most beautiful then because I forget about myself. I remember I was out to dinner with my husband, and I said, I was feeling awful. I was crying. I was, still in the wake of the miscarriage. And I looked at him and I said, I just am not proud of anything. I thought by 31, I'd be proud of something. And he just looked at me like, what does that mean? And I don't even know what I meant by that. I'm really proud of being Lou's mom.
That was great. That was amazing.
Thank you. I haven't been, out very much talking to people, so taking my clothes off and telling what happened is like when you don't know how to swim and they throw you in. But I'm swimming.